I'm Laura Ward, I'm the Chief Exec of Oasis Project. Oasis is a women's sector service for women, children and families who are affected by drug and alcohol problems. So we offer drug and alcohol treatment to adult women alongside a range of services for children and young people who've been impacted by a parent or a family member's substance misuse. That includes therapy, we have a creche, and a range of kind of different services to suit the needs of our various clients. Oasis Project actually holds an accreditation as a trauma-informed organisation. So that was an externally facilitated process that we had to go through. And it encouraged us to think about the different layers at which we consider ourselves trauma-informed and obviously where we can improve as well. And one of the key things was around staff training, staff support. We often think about training for frontline practitioners who are working with the needs of our service users on a day-to-day basis, so support workers or psychotherapists. But actually, those that work in our administrative roles on our reception team are very often the first person in the service that a client will encounter, whether that's ringing up on the phone or coming to their first appointment. So it's really important for us to think about how those staff are equipped to support people in a trauma-informed way. We're part of the voluntary sector, so we're not resource-rich, so we have to make things work as best we can. When women come to our service, it looks very much like a Brighton townhouse. There's nothing on the outside that identifies it as a substance misuse service, and that's a really important thing for our clients, to not be identified as having a drug and alcohol problem by walking through the very door. The very thought of kind of getting lost on your way to access a service or not being able to find the right door to use can be really, really difficult. Kind of coming to drug and alcohol treatment for the first time is difficult enough as it is. So we provide really detailed instructions about how to access the service, how to find us, where to turn, what you're looking for. We provide photographs, especially for our young people services. We provide photographs of the street that we're on, and we tell them what to expect. So we tell them that they're going to be greeted by somebody, that they'll be welcome to sit in the waiting room. It is relatively easy to think about ways that you can make a space feel more welcoming. So we think about the furniture that we put in our waiting rooms. It's nothing fancy, but it is comfortable. We think about the displays that are there when people kind of come into the waiting room and sit down. So there needs to be a certain amount of information available to them that is relevant and that will support them, whether that's signposting information to other services or a bit of information about our own service. But we think about that on balance, so we're not putting hundreds of leaflets and posters up on a wall that can serve to be distracting or off-putting for somebody as they kind of first come into a building. So we have 2 therapy rooms that are really child-centric, and when you walk into them, you would see that they're set up for a child. There are toys and puppets and art materials that make it very clear that they are for a child.
We have appropriate kind of lighting, because within, a therapy service, you want to be able to dim the lighting, adjust the lighting, make it a welcoming space. The windows, it's a light and airy room, both rooms. The upstairs room where we see the young people, so slightly older children, we don't have as many toys, but we have things like bean bags, creating the quality of sitting. So a therapist may sit on a bean bag and the client may do that as well.
Where our services used to be based out of one building, including the creche, things became quite difficult to manage for a few reasons. One of the things we thought about at the time was that for very many of the women that we support, the experience of kind of social services involvement in their child, and often the child being removed from their care, is something that they've had to deal with along their kind of journey with substance misuse. So having to come to a building where they were faced with kind of the sounds and sights of children and young people was really difficult for some of the women that we supported. So as soon as we were able to, we then separated those services out.
In terms of our adult spaces, it's really important, I think, for it to not feel too clinical, but we definitely, it's really light and it's really airy. We make our clients drinks when they come in, so it's not exactly like being at home, but it's definitely something that feels like a more informal space, not necessarily with tables in front of the worker and the client. It can be literally just kind of sitting in 2 easy armchairs, as it were?
At each of our buildings, so the one for young people and the one for adults, we have a kitchen which is used communally by staff and clients alike. We aren't trying to emulate people's houses, but there's something about people feeling that they are able to come and make a cup of tea for themselves. Clearly that's not going to be something that's available to all services. That won't always be appropriate. But when we're trying to build relationships with people in the first instance, actually making a cup of tea together can be a really good place to start. We have a magazine that our service users put together on a quarterly basis where they contribute their creative ideas and their poems and their artwork. And it serves as a tool for others in recovery, as well as an outlet for them and a reason for them to convene on a bi-weekly basis to get together and make this publication together.
Although we don't make this a clinical environment, sometimes it is too overwhelming to be around other people, other workers. There might be negative associations, in the area, whatever. So if the only way is to reach that person is to go to them, then that's what we do. There is a reflection from one of the team around how important it had been for a client that the worker worked with to have lunch, and it would be a monthly kind of meeting, and they would be doing other bits of recovery support around it as well, but that would be a really lovely, and what she voiced it as a normal thing to do with the worker, and I suppose as well in that she reflected that she would put on certain clothes and feel a certain way, and I think for her it wasn't obvious that she was the client in that situation, and that really mattered to her. She really spoke passionately about how important it was for her to feel normal in a situation with a worker rather than being sat opposite, in a more clinical environment. We also receive donations from FareShare. I think we've got better at the way we display FareShare, and I think a member of staff really brought my attention to it. Nobody wants to be kind of rifling through kind of crates or boxes, whatever, because that's not what you do in a shop. The way that we've displayed the FareShare is a way of getting, I think, clients to come into the service as well, promoting the service, so we can have just a quick check-in. It doesn't have to be an intense key work or anything like that. It can just be are you okay? How are you doing today? And please take whatever you need in terms of food. So that's a good incentive as well as outreach.